Just got done with some suspension mods for the truck and camper, so I thought I'd make another quick video explain what's going on. Truck, just weight-wise, got about 190 pounds of water in there, 40 pounds of propane. Camper is pretty light. It just weighs 300 pounds by itself, but the build out's probably another 300 pounds plus, another 100 pounds of gear. So you're looking at about 900 pounds in the back of this truck. So that got me some sag going on. Before I had anything on it, I had about 40 7/8 inch between the top of the wheel well and the ground. When I put the camper on, it went to 40, so I lost 7/8 there. And then with the build out in the back and loaded, I got down to about 39 to 38 and a half, depending on how I load it. So I looked at a couple things. It was still fairly level with the front because the front is, comes quite lower stock, but I wanted it back a little bit more to stock and possibly lift the front and level it out with a higher lift because I'm going to be putting bigger tires and rims on this thing pretty soon. So this is the stuff that I did to this camper. I did a couple things with shocks and helper springs to give it a little bit more stability and everything, because when I did install the camper, and I did it fully loaded, there was a little bit of sway. There was definitely some sag. It was a little floaty, and then turning and going over bumps and everything, it has quite a bit of sway going on. So I wanted to rectify that. I wanted it really tight. So this is what I did. I'm going to take a look here underneath and show you what I did. All right, here's what I got going on. I got a couple things going on. To gain some of the height back, I added IBOC 1 inch spacer lift in between the coil or the leaf springs and the axle. That gave me some extra lift. I actually did that last. The first thing I did is install these Bilstein 5100s. That helped a little bit with the sway, but not as much as I had hoped. So I then installed these. These are Sumo springs. They're like elastomer bumpers that replace the axle stops, the stock axle stocks. And they sit on, they don't sit, but they impact the top of the axle. So when the axle is deflected upwards, it hits these bumpers, and these bumpers are, it's soft for the first half inch and then gets firmer and firmer as it goes up. So this really helped with the stability of it, because when you take a turn and the body starts to lean, this bumper will come down and touch the axle and hold that axle from going up even further. And it really, really helped with the sway. The thing cornered like a Ferrari. It was great. However, with the way I had it set up without the lift, there was enough sag that the bottom of the bumper, it doesn't right now, but it was contacting the top of the axle at all times when it was loaded. So what I ended up having, the issue was I was getting a little buck on the back axle. I'd go over a bump, a speed bump or a dip or something like that, and that back end would sort of buck up, because since the axle was, or the bumper was sitting on the axle, it didn't flex very much that first few inches. And they tell you to leave a ½ inch gap between the axle and the bumper. So I didn't have that, but I did like the stability it was giving me. If you look at the top of this thing, there are some adjustment holes, so I could have raised the bumper up, a 1/4 inch and got some of that out of it, but I was just dealing with too much sag. I wanted it up a little higher. Like I said, I'm going to be putting bigger tires on this thing. So instead of just moving the bumper up, I decided to add the lift, and that's what I did here. I installed the 1 inch lift IBOX. My 5100 shocks work from 0 to 1 inch lift, so that was fine with the shocks. These were pretty easy to install. you know, they just clamp on. You remove the U-bolts, the old U-bolts, and you clamp the new ones on. And this gives me that 1/2-inch gap at the mid setting of the Sumo springs that I needed. And now this thing rides real nice. So I eliminated the buck problem. The spring is sitting right where it's supposed to be. I got the ride height back. What I got for ride heights is with the lift, I put me back up at 39 7/8. And for everybody keeping score, that puts me back about just adding the camper. So about 1 inch less than stock. This thing sags. And that's not bad with the weight that I have in it. And like I said, handle's really nice. You know, I get a little bit more sway than when the Sumo springs were sitting on the axle all the time, but I lose the buck. So it's sitting and riding pretty much like it was back to stock. So, have any questions? Go ahead and post a comment. That's my video. Thanks. Bye.